Did you know that communicating without defensiveness can be a key to a successful relationship? This is Robert Manni, host of Guys TV, and this week my special guest is Dr. Warren Farrell. We're going to talk all about it right here, right now on Guys TV. You can also catch me on KCAA Radio here in Southern California, Guys Radio, my worldwide podcast, and we're on UK Health Radio all weekend long. Guys TV, Guys Radio, thanks for your support. Okay, it is the interview portion of our show, and I'm delighted that our special guest is a new guest to Guys Radio. His name is Warren Farrell. He's a PhD. He's been chosen by the Financial Times of London to be one of the world's top 100 thought leaders. And you know, on Guys Radio, I've interviewed close to 800, and I am delighted that I have one of the top folks here today. And we're going to talk about relationships today, but my guest, Warren, is he's a worldwide renowned published author in 19 languages, New York Times bestsellers, a lot of stuff about men and a lot of books about women. And one of the cool things about Warren is he's an advocate for both men and women. I'm delighted he's going to be with us today. Why Men Are the Way They Are is one of his bestsellers, The Myth of Male Power. He's got another one, the Boy Crisis, some work he's done, worldwide acclaim from the White House to the Norwegian Parliament. His most recent book that we're going to talk about today, we're going to focus on relationships, usually between couples, but it also could be about, you know, your relationships with your coworkers or your family, etc. It's called Role Mate to Soulmate, The 7 Secrets to Lifelong Love. It's a new book based on Warren's teaching couples communication for over 30 years to over 1,000 couples and psychologists. Warren's also been a pioneer in the women's movement, elected 3 times to the board of NOW, and the men's movement, called by GQ the Martin Luther King of the men's movement. And he advocates for gender liberation movement, freeing both sexes from their rigid roles of the past. And I love that. His life journey is the subject of a forthcoming documentary. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Warren Farrell on Guys Radio. Thank you, Warren.
Oh, I'm looking forward to talking with you. You and I have an amazingly similar background, as we have talked about.
I know. Warren and I both came from New Jersey, came out to California. Warren is very accomplished in what he's done. I'm working on what I'm doing, but I think we're kindred spirits. And you know, Warren's been interviewed. You've been interviewed by Oprah and by Jordan Peterson and by Sean Hannity and Katie Couric. What have you learned by being interviewed from a lot of these big stud interviewers out there?
Oftentimes they're not the best interviewers because they are. Barbara Walters particularly was, she would ask a question, and then while you were answering the question, she would look at her notes to get, to get herself together to ask the next question very well. Oprah was a good interviewer and amazingly versatile, and so is Jordan Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
Is amazing in a different way. Like I would say something about the importance of roughhousing among humans, and he would interrupt more than normal, but he would interrupt with that reminds me of a study of rats in which they roughhouse. So everything that I said, he'd have something very brilliant and new and insightful and wise to add to it. And so it was really quite interesting as I listened back to his thing. I was like, because when you listen back to an interview that you've done, you can focus, you're more relaxed and you can see what the other person contributes. And he really contributed a lot.
Well, Warren, you're a very accomplished author. So you've written about the boy crisis, the myth of male power, why men are the way they are, father and son reunion, how to bring dads we need to the children we love, women can't hear what men don't say, why men earn more, the startling truth behind the pay gap, and what women can do about it. So you've been an advocate for both sexes. And now you've got Role Mate to Soulmate. And I was reading that you had 4 inspirations for writing this book. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was the first inspiration was I always look to see when about my next project. The goal of mine is there something in society that's really off, that's dysfunctional? And if so, am I somebody that has some idea that I think that could solve it? And usually the answer is no, either can't solve it or I'm not the best person for it. But in the case of relationships, I was seeing that a number of couples courses complained that while they taught that the wisdom that it was very important to not respond defensively to personal criticism. Nevertheless, that when the wisdom of not responding defensively to personal criticism, that was very much absorbed, and everybody said, yes, good idea in the workshop. But almost always when couples got home, the moment the criticism appeared, the wisdom disappeared. And so I said this, and John Gottman and others were saying this was something that was a problem. And I was saying that I wonder if there's a solution to that. So I began to investigate the possibility of that. And long story short, over a 30-year period, one of the things that I do is after I do a workshop, I invite people to a couple of months after they do the workshop to a free group follow-up phone call. And at that phone call, they tell me everything that worked and then everything that they did that didn't work in their real life about the workshop, not just the theory of the workshop. And so the problem of when the criticism appeared, they still got defensive, came up again and again. And so I started working on whether or not there was a way around that. And I came to understand that historically speaking, when there was a criticism, it was a potential enemy. So it was functional to get up your defenses so you weren't killed by the enemy. And so that was functional for survival. It's just totally dysfunctional for love. And so that's what inspired me to really get into this.
Now, looking at relationships, two questions here. One is, what is the number one issue that couples have from that you've experienced, and has it changed over the time that you've been working with couples?
The number one issue is the inability to handle personal criticism without becoming defensive. That is true for straight couples. It's true for gay couples. It is true. It has been true throughout all of history. But in previous generations, like our grandparents had that problem, but they sort of just didn't expect that of each other. They sort of like the mother just kept her mouth shut. The dad kept their mouth shut. The mother talked to other women friends about how terrible the husband was. The husband went out and got drunk, or did something with the local church so he'd feel good about himself and get appreciations outside of the home. And so those were the ways that those problems were solved. But today, when survival is no longer sort of an issue, where you say, instead of saying till death do us part, you say till death do us part, but it's really until we don't get along for a long period of time do we part, do we stay together. And so our expectations have increased as survival is no longer the dominant factor in keeping a marriages together among the middle and upper middle class where they can afford to divorce.
Now, with the roles of men and women have shifted over the years, over the decades, if you will,
Mhm.
and women, of course, are getting their long overdue recognition. And men are like a little bit at a crossroads in terms of not knowing they're caught between, particularly for young guys, the MMA and manscaping. They're not sure which way to go. They don't have the role models. And now women don't need the men for the money. And it used to be this kind of success factor. That was kind of the men would be successful and the women would be
Mhm.
sex objectified successfully, and women
Mhm.
could be objectified sexually. I'm not saying that's right or anything, but
Mhm.
that's kind of how the roles were kind of played. Now
Yeah.
it's changed. Talk to us about that, Warren.
Yes, historically speaking, for sure. Women were sex objects and men were success objects, if you will.
Yeah.
And today, things have changed and things haven't changed. And so what's changed is that, yes, women are earning more money, so they don't really need men for the money as much as they used to. However, it is very rare for a woman to marry a man. She'll have a relationship with a man, but will rarely marry a man who she feels will continue earning less than she does.
Hmm.
So there's still the pressure on the man to keep earning, and if she's earning a lot, many men still feel pressure to earn at least as much, if not more. But what the problem with that is that it really leaves out a number of opportunities for women. Many women say to me, it's really terrible that men can be a have-it-all man. They can have a wife, children, and a top-notch job. I can't be a have-it-all woman. Totally not true. She can be a have-it-all woman, but in order to be a have-it-all woman, she needs to marry a man who she chooses based on not his provider protector skills, but on his nurturer connector skills, his ability to. So she needs to say, instead of searching out men who are successful, she needs to search out men whose body language she likes, whose listening patterns she likes, who see that connect well. And that type of man will often be likely to make less money than she does. But that type of man is perfect for being willing to stay home and take care of the children, or at least check him out to
Hmm.
see if he's willing to stay home and take care of the children. And while she goes out and earns the big bucks, if that's what she wants to do. And so then she can break glass ceilings on the outside, and she can have a happy marriage and children that are well taken care of by a nurturer connector type of man. However, there's
Hmm.
one big problem with that, and that is most women, when they don't feel comfortable and they tend to not respect men who are earning less than they do. And so even though she would respect herself if she stayed home with the children, she doesn't respect that the man is earning less and staying home, unless at home he's planning some new operation that will eventually
Right.
earn a lot of money, then maybe she's accepting of that. And that's a problem because a man senses that if the woman does not respect him, she cannot love him. Women can almost never
Hmm.
love a man that they don't respect. A man can love a woman that he doesn't respect in areas, because if in areas that maybe she's not good at math, maybe she's not good at,
Hmm.
she's not working, but she takes care of the children well, so he doesn't respect her as a provider protector type of thing. In that area, he feels like, all right, she doesn't do that well. I can get respect by doing that well. And so he can love her almost all the more in the area where he doesn't respect her. That's not true in reverse. Women have a really hard time loving a man that they don't respect, or even in the areas where they don't respect him.
Okay, guys, radio. My special guest is Dr. Warren Farrell. We're talking about his new book, Role Mate to Soulmate, kind of breaking down some of the old patterns. So, with this new paradigm that's happening now, where maybe the man and the woman are kind of making the same amount of money and the roles are changing a bit, does this sounds like it creates a lot of pressure on couples, particularly on the guy, because he has like he's going to be questioning. It's like a self-esteem thing. Like maybe I'm making close to what my wife makes. She makes a little more. I've got to make more than her, so she'll respect me, because she's not going to love me unless she respects me. And it just puts it. It seems like it puts guys in a tough position where there's a lot of effort being done by our culture, and rightfully so, to give women a fair chance to really, earn as much as possible and break the glass ceiling. But it's creating some type of, I don't want to say dysfunction, but confusion in terms of the relationships.
Yes, absolutely. So the role mate, sometimes people don't understand what I mean by role mate. So role mate is just that you get married and you start noticing, that one of you is better at cooking dinner, the other one is fine
Right.
about cleaning up and maybe making a salad. And so you start developing very nuanced roles in your relationship, and that's good and that's useful. But it doesn't mean that you're a soulmate, that you really hear each other. And there's a number of things that sort of create a soulmate. One, I mentioned before, is being able to handle personal criticism without becoming defensive. Another one is interpreting complaining in a way that can be functional in the relationship to bring you closer together. Another is complacency, and another is a feeling that your partner is controlling you. But the single biggest one that is the inability to handle personal criticism without becoming defensive. And so what I ended up being able to do with that is I found that that no one could do that spontaneously unless I taught them to create a conflict-free zone for 166 hours a week. And then for the other 2 hours per week, they created a caring and sharing practice. And that caring and sharing practice meant that before a partner shares just one criticism that they're allowed to share per week with their partner alters their natural biological state of being likely to respond defensively. And so they alter that state by saying 6 mindsets out loud that prepares them to handle their partner's concern. So one mindset, for example, is what I call the love guarantee. And the love guarantee, the man or the woman who's about to be criticized says, um, if I provide a safe environment for you to be able to say anything you want in whatever tone of voice you want, even if I 100% disagree with your interpretation. If I nevertheless provide a safe environment, you'll feel more secure with me. You'll feel like you don't have to walk on eggshells around me. And therefore, you'll feel more loved by me. And therefore, you'll feel more love for me. Now he's doing something that's biologically unnatural.
Mhm.
Instead of associating criticism with a need to defend, he's associating criticism with an opportunity to be more deeply loved. Eh,
Let
Go
go,
ahead.
go ahead, Warren.
No, you go ahead.
So in a lot of couples, I'll make an assumption here. A lot of times with guys, if they're okay, they don't say anything. If they have an issue, they'll bring it up. They listen to what their partner has to say. They process it. She agrees, she disagrees. Is this worth, how important is this on a scale of 1 to 10? Maybe I should
Mhm.
keep arguing it, or just, okay, she feels that way. I don't want to go into the weeds on this. A lot of times women have another assumption, have with the intention is to make the relationship as good as possible. And they
Mhm.
start picking things out of the on the guy about the guy that can be easily fixed sometimes and not as easily fixed other times. And
Mhm.
guys over time take that as defensively, that take it defensively because it seems like they're being nitpicked. I'm
Yes.
sure you run into this all the time. Talk to us about that, doctor.
Only about 99% of the time. Yes, you're exactly right. And so that's why it is when a person feels criticized, the man who feels criticized feels like he's not being respected. And then that
Yes.
gets to the feeling that I'm not being loved. The woman who feels criticized, I married a protector and now he's tearing me apart. That's not very protective.
Mm-hmm.
And so for different but overlapping reasons, both sexes
Mm-hmm.
do not handle the criticism well. And so that's why I have them alter that natural biological propensity to be defensive by first doing these 6 mindsets. So I'll give you a fun mindset.
Okay.
So in my workshop and then in the online course that it can be bought with the Role Mate to Soulmate book,
Mm-hmm.
um, the the couples are asked to sit back to back and to write on a piece of paper the answer to this question. Imagine your partner is about to be killed, maybe drowned or in a car accident, and you know that you have a 100% chance of saving her or his life. However, you know that with that 100% chance of saving her or his life, that you'll have a 50% chance of losing your own life in the process. If children aren't a factor, would you do it? That is, risk your own life for a 100% chance of saving your partner's life? And the answer is either yes, no, or uncertain. So the couple sits back to back. I guarantee them that they'll never see their partner's answer.
Mm-hmm.
And what I discover, and then they wrinkle their identical pieces of paper. The men throw them into one corner, the women throw them into another corner.
I
The
love
men
this.
all the men all pick up a different version, somebody else's, some other man's paper. Women pick up another woman's paper. And then I go around and say, Yes, no, maybe. About 91, 2% of the men, depending on the workshop, say, yes, I would take a 50% chance of losing my own life to save my partner's life. Women, the issue of the children not being an issue is more important. But once that's out of the way, about 80% of women say
Okay,
they'd be
good.
willing to risk their life at a 50% level to save their partner's life. The so
What's the
then
takeaway on that?
so this then becomes the next um, mindset, and the mindset goes like this: if I'm willing to die for you, well, maybe I can listen to you. And it just puts listening as a task in perspective, and how important your partner is to you. And yet the fact that we won't handle the criticism, but yet we're willing to die for that person. Um,
How about this, Dr. Warren? Sometimes with in terms of communication styles with men and women, that the woman will pick on something and the guy will like hear it, and then the woman will keep going with it. And it seems like you have to almost like repeat it back that I got it, and then understand why, and then have to kind of like it almost seems like sometimes it's too much for a lot of guys, where it's like I got it. I don't need to take. I don't need all the rationale and everything. I got it. Like
yeah.
put the cap back on the toothpaste, or mop up around the sink, or whatever it is. And it can create the little things can create issues there. How do you balance that where it's good for the woman to pick out the stuff that the guy's doing wrong to improve the relationship, but not go overboard where it becomes just, you kind of, it's like almost like picking your fights, if you will, where you don't want to just pick every single thing out that the dude does, because men aren't necessarily like that in the same way. If they have an issue, they'll bring it up. If it's minor stuff, it's like whatever. They don't, in my opinion, they don't really get into the weeds on that stuff about their female partners as much.
Yes. So first of all, very good and very accurate. And so that's why I have the couple only be able to bring up one concern per week. But suppose the woman or man has 50 concerns that they are concerned with. So here's what I asked them to do. This is the creation of the conflict-free zone during the 166 hours a week. So the first thing that they do is they visualize, and they say, okay, do I bring this issue up that they go back to the time when they had the caring and sharing time. And the caring and sharing time, almost everybody feels 100% heard, like they've never felt heard before.
Awesome.
And so that just gives them this ability to visualize, I can save my defensive response to the caring and sharing time, and I know with 100% certainty I'll be heard, or I can respond defensively now and give my side of the argument, and that will probably lead to my partner giving her or his side of the argument, which will escalate the argument, and we'll both walk out of this experience feeling pretty bad about each other. So what to do? So the first thing is visualize the solution being a lot better than an argument. The second thing is, what do you do though with all that stuff inside of you about, that you just argued about? You go to the computer and you do 4 stages of journaling. Journal stage number 1 is to write down every reason that you're right and your partner is wrong. Just get it out of your system. It's what I call the self-righteous stage.
Mm-hmm.
And the second stage is just, just take one thing that your partner is trying to share with you that you could really listen to and, acknowledge. Then a number of things. And then finally write your partner's complaint as if it was your complaint, and from completely from your partner's side. And so that allows you to sort of
Mm-hmm.
like, get it out of your system and sort of think it through. And then you do a number of other things that I teach couples how to work with music. That's very important. It's your cheapest therapist. And it's a way of reconnecting with your partner, doing some high energy music
Mm-hmm.
followed by some romantic music. Also, there's another method of keeping the conflict-free zone conflict-free, of which is being able to just
Mhm.
just was losing which one that was there. But it,
It's okay.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah, just
the conflict-free zone.
yes, the different ways of keeping these conflict-free zone conflict-free, and so each of those are things that I ask couples to go through and actually remember them as opposed to me forgetting one at this moment.
Mhm. Okay. The name of the book, once again, is Role Mate to Soulmate. My special guest is Dr. Warren Farrell. The book is a book that you don't just read this book, you have to participate in it. You work on it with your partner. It's part of the overall
Yes.
program. And it's fantastic. It's broken into four parts. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what people can expect from the book? And then I want to ask you about kind of the mindset of people going into doing this type of work. But first, a little overview on those four parts of the book so people get a sense of that.
Yes, basically the first one of the first things I teach people to do is to do fill the reservoir of love, which is with appreciations of each other. So there's a number of the course as opposed to the book. The subtitle of the course is The Art and Discipline of Love. And so, what I'm saying very clearly is love does not get maintained without discipline. And people go, discipline and love? That's crazy.
Mhm.
And so, I'll give an example of that. So, every Wednesday, so you set us, I have a couples choose one night a week where they'll set aside time, just about 15 minutes each, to appreciate each other. But they don't appreciate each other by saying, I appreciate how well you cook, yeah, how nicely you cook this dinner. They say something. I ask them to learn how to appreciate each other at five levels of specificity. So if your partner cooked dinner and you notice whether maybe the skin on the chicken was crisp, and then whether the chicken itself was moist, and then you ask, how did you manage to get the chicken so moist but yet keep the skin crisp? And, and what were
I love it.
and you put some your spices on that. What were those spices? It seemed like there were parsley, sage, rosemary, thyme, or some other Simon and Garfunkel spice. And and so you're learning two things. One is to how to appreciate your partner at multiple levels of specificity. And then two, the discipline of setting aside time during the week to actually do that with your partner, to share three appreciations each. And Liz and I, my wife and I, do that on
Mhm.
a Wednesday night, usually when we don't forget about it or screw it up. And that really helps because couples oftentimes they learn and share their appreciations for each other when they're first meeting each other. You're so much like unlike other women, you do
Mhm.
this rather than that. You're a really amazing guy that, so many guys I've gone out with are not like you are in this
Right,
respect, and
right.
blah, blah, blah. And then you start becoming complacent about that. And so the couple knows that they appreciate each other. And if their partner were killed, they would say it at the,
Okay.
at the funeral, but they really feel they don't feel it from their partner on a daily basis.
Okay. So that's the foundational wisdom part. Then we get into the seven secrets of deeper love.
Yes, and those seven secrets, the number one is that the ability to handle criticism without becoming defensive, and then other secrets are one of those is the appreciations of each other. That's also one of the secrets. The other is the ability to play together. Couples that play together tend to
Mhm.
stay together, and that's very important. We often forget that when when we're involved in the relationship process. Another one is taking those four depleters of love, learning what those are. The com the crit
Yeah.
the
What are they? What are they? Those four
the
depleters of love.
It's what I call the four C's:
Mhm.
criticisms, complaining, complacency, and controlling.
Hmm.
And one of the things that people often say, well, many couples, I'll ask the question, do you criticize more often than you'd like? And almost everybody in the workshop raises their hand. Yeah, I do. And then do you complain? So I first explain what complaining is. So, for example, if let's say one of you recommends a movie or a restaurant, and you go out to the restaurant and you mentioned, gee, the soup was a little bit flavorless here, the guy was really kind of rude. And the atmosphere is a little bit, sort of it's a bummer that I can still see one of those garbage cans in the corner type
Right,
of
right,
thing.
right, right,
And so from your perspective, you're complaining about the restaurant, the food, the service. From your partner's perspective, who recommended that restaurant,
right,
you're complaining about your partner.
right.
And so those are the types of things that
Hmm.
I get couples to understand. Complacency is a very fascinating one. You first go out with your partner and you're shaving your beard, you're putting on your makeup, you're doing your hair, you're choosing what's the shirt, the clothes, or the blouse that I really feel most attractive in, and and then if the partner is coming over for dinner, you're figuring out the best meal you've ever made, and you shop for the freshest ingredients. You're preparing it ahead of time, getting the house all cleaned up, and so it looks the best. But then you start living together 3, 4, or 5 months a year, and you're wearing sloppy clothes. You're not, shaving. You're maybe doing things that are embarrassing that you would never even think about doing on the first date. And your partner, and then Saturday comes and you're going out and you say, "Oh, what should I wear? I've got to put makeup back on." And
Hmm.
maybe somebody's coming over for dinner. What's the best recipe I have? And you're doing that, all the same things you used to do over again. So the message to your partner is that, yeah, I could take you for granted. But
Exactly.
when
Hmm.
a relative stranger that comes over the house, that, if they move a distance from your home, you'll probably never see again. And so yet you're all pampering up for them.
Exactly.
And so now, on the other hand, complacency means that you can sort of feel relaxed about yourself. Just be yourself. You don't have to worry about doing all the shaving and that type of thing.
Hmm.
So what I work with couples to do is to have dialogue about the degree of complacency that feels good for them, the degree
Hmm.
that feels bad for them. Oftentimes, complacency is something that you want a certain amount of, but for most couples, it's gone too far when they think about it. But part of complacency is not thinking about it. And so that's another way. Another is controlling. When I ask couples, do you criticize more than you'd like to? They usually say yes. When I say, do you complain more than you like to, now that you understand what complaining is? Usually yes. Are you more complacent than you'd like to be? Yeah, probably usually yes. So if you are criticized, that I say, if you are criticized by your partner a lot, do you feel controlled by your partner?
Hmm.
If you hear a lot of complaining about what you do a lot, do you feel controlled by your partner? And everybody says yes. When I ask them, do you feel you're controlling? Most people say, no, I'm not controlling, until they think about that if
Right.
they feel criticized or,
Yeah.
complaining, they do feel controlled.
Yeah. There is an undercurrent type of control that the person who's controlling doesn't realize, and the person who's being controlled may have just succumbed to because they've given up or whatever. But there is control is a there's an insidiousness to it. Got two other parts of the book, Doctor: Living in Love and From Civil War to Civil Dialogue. You want to give a quick snapshot of those?
Yes, living in love are things like playing together, because couples that play together stay together, and learning how to play together. Learning even just starting with some simple things like turning on. I have both couples share what their favorite energetic music is, and then to put that on Sonos or Spotify, so that they can change the mood in the house anytime that they want to with that high energy music, and then to follow that high energy music with their partner's favorite romantic music. And that really is very helpful. Another is to create win-win solutions to your stickiest problems. So there's 150 possible problems that couple, the most frequent problems that I've seen couples get into. Maybe in a blended family, or you're treating your children from the former marriage better than you're treating my children. What, in what way? And so how to solve those problems. So some problems, even simple problems like where to go on vacation, are, you can hear the other person's perspective. That's what you do first. But after you hear somebody's perspective, you have to decide to go to Nashville or to go to Europe or wherever the different places are. So how to create win-win solutions to your stickiest problems. And then one of the most fascinating ones with this era of Democrats being way to the left and Republicans being way to the right,
Right.
and then couples get together for Thanksgiving or Christmas or the summer, or Easter or whatever, and they're with your family, and somebody's a strong Trump supporter, and somebody's absolutely
Mhm.
hates Trump, think he's
Right.
the biggest
Right.
narcissist in the world, and so you're afraid to talk with each other. So that part of the book is called From Civil War to Civil Dialogue. It's
Mm.
how to go about. So an example is you say to the person that has a very different political perspective, I'm noticing that we're sort of like drifting apart because we don't, at the moment we talk politics, we feel like the other one is the enemy. So what I'd like to do is to just offer to hear your perspective with no obligation on your part to hear mine. I won't expect myself to change my perspective necessarily, but I want to discover in your perspective what is the virtue that maybe I feel has gotten taken to its extreme and becomes a vice. So let's say somebody is a strong feminist and somebody else feels that feminism has destroyed the family. And so instead of focusing on your belief that feminism has destroyed the family, go to the virtue of the original feminist movement and say,
Mhm.
one of the things I imagine that you must appreciate about feminism is the fact that it has allowed your wife to be able to do things that your grandmother would never have considered doing, or allowed your daughter to do those things,
Exactly.
and allowed sports to happen, where your daughter can be involved in sports that wouldn't have been thought of in your grandparents'
Mhm.
day, and so on. And so now you may still retain the perspective that feminism has demonized men and put men in the
Right.
form of a patriarchy and DEI and that type of thing, but you don't. But for a moment, you are focusing on the virtue that you can
Mhm.
find in what feminism contributed. And so the other person sees that that the other person may be an aunt and an uncle or whatever, and they see that, okay, you see some good in them, you see some good in their beliefs. You're not just sitting down and when
Mhm.
you're talking about these beliefs, argue them. And
Awesome.
then usually the person who feels heard is willing to do that in reverse. But you don't start with the assumption that the only way you're going to be okay with this is that your family, this other family member will do that in
Mhm.
reverse.
Well stated, Dr. Warren Farrell. The name of the book is Role Mate to Soulmate. Let me ask you the real money question. The name of the show is Guys Radio, and half of my half of my audience is female, and that's
Mhm.
perfectly understandable. If you look at any big conference or anything metaphysical or anything that's kind of quote unquote a little touchy feely, it's filled with women.
Yes.
Most guys, and I'm a boomer, and you're a boomer, they all think they have all the answers. They don't want to hear it. They've
Mhm.
got it. How do you get guys to come to your seminars?
First of all, they're often dragged there by a woman.
that's,
Um,
that's what I was thinking.
and so, excuse me, right up the angle of what you just said, right? And then I usually start out in the seminar doing some form of humor. Like I'll explain that I just want to make sure you've come to the right seminar. This is a seminar about, that this is the seminar for group sex for born again Christians. And suddenly the guys will start relaxing. Like, all right, this guy has a sense of humor.
Yes.
He can play with us and stuff like that.
Because it seems like
Um,
a trap for a lot of guys, right? Oh, I'm going to go to
oh yeah,
this,
a
and
lot
it's
of
like it's
guys.
all going to be about criticizing me. It's like
Exactly.
couples therapy. It's all going to be about picking. I'm going to get double teamed by two women who are going to pick me apart. That's what they're
Exactly.
afraid of.
Or even a male therapist
Yeah,
who is
yeah.
trained to think more like
Yep,
well, I'm
yeah.
a male, and I think a lot. The reason I was a part of the feminist movement for so many years was I think a lot like
Sure.
many women do, and so they'll be torn apart by me. Who will just get kudos as a
Exactly.
therapist by teaming up against
Mhm.
them. That
Okay.
type of thing.
It sounds like you
So
got a good way of breaking that down, doctor.
uh,
So
I
that's
start
good.
breaking it down that way, but then I explain very carefully when you come out of this weekend, you will both feel heard and you will both have a method of being safe anytime you want to share something that your partner would otherwise experience as criticism. And therefore, many men say to me, in my past relationships, I have vowed that I would never again share what's bothering me because every time I do, I receive emotional distance, I receive sexual distance, and
Right.
so I'd rather go out and drink or just
Exactly. Yeah.
forget about it or keep it to myself, which is the beginning of what one of the main things that destroys almost every relationship or makes people more distant than they want to be.
Okay. Dr. Warren Farrell, amazing work you're doing. Thank you so much for being on Guys Radio. The name of the book, once again, Role Mate to Soulmate. It's a book you work with. You don't just read it, and it's fantastic. And I've learned so much today. I hope our audience has also. So thank you, everybody. But most importantly, thank you, Dr. Farrell. And tell everybody where they can find out more about you and pick up this book and all the other great works you've done.
Yeah, my website is warrenfarrell.com. I know you started to say William, but I'm not William Farrell. I'm just not that funny. And so it's a Warren Farrell.com. And my website has just go to the part of it that has couples communication on it. You'll see a lot about that, or to the Role Mate to Soulmate book. The Role Mate to Soulmate book, don't just read the book. In that book, there's access to the online video course. It's not until you and your partner do that together that you'll practice what I talk about in the book. Words are intellectual. They disappear when criticism appears. So actually practice doing this with your partner.
Great message. Thank you so much, Dr. Warren Farrell, here on Guys Radio.
If you enjoy the guests and content I bring you each and every week to Guys TV and Guys Radio, please support us by subscribing to our channels and platforms. Thank you.